In this episode, we'll take a look at the Amaran 100D and 200D single-point LED lights. I think we can sum up the new Amaran 100D and 200D as affordable Aputure LED lights. So they have all the quality that you would expect from an Aputure light, but they come in at a much lower price point. So the 100D, for example, comes in at $199 US, and the 200D comes in at $299 US at the time of this review. Let's jump into the different features and the things we found in our tests. First up, in terms of color quality, we've talked a lot about spectral similarity index if you followed any of our other previous lighting videos. And in this case, we are scoring here on the 200D at 73 SSI when you compare the light output from the 200D to a standardized D5500 reference point. And then on the 100D, we came in at 72 SSI. Anything above 70 is generally what I'm looking for with LED lights. If you fall down into the 60s, you can start to experience more severe color rendering errors. But in this case, you're seeing exactly what it looks like. And in our test shots, feels to me like these skin tones came out really nicely. So color quality wise, doing really well for daylight balanced LED lights. Now, if you're interested in any of the other color quality metrics like CRI, TLCI, TM30, those are also here. You can go ahead and pause and look at the details on those if you're interested. Next up, output. Again, testing with the Seikonic C800 spectrometer. We measured the following output levels for each of the different lights, so the 100D, the 200D, and we're comparing it here to the original Aputure COB 120D Mark II. And so you'll see these are actually putting out significantly more light than the 120D Mark II, but the story is a little bit more complex than that. The 120D Mark II came with a different type of reflector. It's not what Aputure is now calling their hyper reflector, and I feel like the 120D Mark II's reflector produced a more kind of even flood, so it wasn't concentrating all the light into this hot spot in the middle and then kind of, falling off in a gradient from there. So it was probably better as a general purpose floodlight, but the hyper reflector does produce higher readings. And in fact, we put the hyper reflector on the 120D Mark II as well. And even then it still wasn't achieving the levels that we're seeing on these other lights. So these new lights put out plenty of photons. So if you're looking for any sort of light you can use for a talking head video, interviews, or even for a full body shot, these are going to do the job. You're not going to be able to light a mountainside with these. That's for the 600D instead. Now, just to give you a sense here, you can see that in our test shots, we used the 200D as our key light, shot through a 4x4, and we had the key light set at 10% on the dimmer, and we were shooting at f2.8, ISO 400, 23.976 frame rate, 180 degree shutter angle, and then the rim light, which was about 3 meters behind our model here, and we had that set at 20% on the dimmer. So again, plenty of light, certainly for talking head, but even for bigger jobs. In terms of power draw, we saw 117 watts from the 100D, and the 200D would pull about 235 in our tests. As far as flicker, we didn't find any sort of flicker. We dimmed it down to 20%, set our shutter speed up to 1/785th of a second, and no flicker issues, so I don't think you're going to run into any problems there either. Now, the question is, how did Aputure produce these lights with the amount of output they do, with the color quality they produce at these kind of prices? And the answer, I think, is really largely in the feature set and also the build. So the build is actually mostly plastic with metal, from my point of view, in all the important places. So for example, you can see there's this metal insert in the yoke, and you can also see that the Bowens mount is metal. So where you really, really need the metal, they have it there. And then the rest of the body is plastic. The plastic seems pretty high grade, actually. So I'm not really experiencing any kind of concerns about it holding up. It seems like it'll do fine. We'll find out over time. Let's run through the features really quickly here. First of all, the light is a little bit different than some of the other Aputure lights in that all of the controls are on the light head itself, so you don't have a separate control box. And then the other unit is the AC adapter. So that will be kind of down on the floor underneath the light, or you can, with its included wire, hang it from the light stand. Either way you want to do that. It does also come with this locking IEC plug, which is a really nice feature. You don't normally see locking IEC plugs, but this is nice from the standpoint that you're less likely to experience a pullout. inadvertently while someone walks by or something like that. So nice little touch. It also has an umbrella receiver, which is really nice. You don't see that on the higher end Aputure lights. And the nice thing about that is that if you are on a really tight budget and you do need to soften the light to use it as a key light, so you have that kind of soft wrapping effect, then the umbrella will do that. It does spill a little bit more than it would with a softbox, for example, like we're using here, and especially if you're using a grid on the softbox. But nevertheless, it does produce a very beautiful soft light, and umbrellas are super affordable. I think you can buy a decent one for $20, $25. And it holds the rod of the umbrella out of the way of the reflector, so you can leave the reflector on, or if you prefer, you can take the reflector off. Got a few different options there. It does have what looks like an OLED screen on the back here, easy to read. Does its job. It basically shows two things, the dimmer level, and it shows the Bluetooth status. The fan is quiet. You can hear it moving air, but it is not enough to interfere with sound generally. So here, for example, I'm booming with a microphone right here. This is my DPA 4017B, and the light is approximately 1.5 meters from me. Just want to be quiet there for a moment to see if you could hear the fan, but that's what it's like there, so I think you're in pretty good shape with the fans as well. The controls are very simple. You have a power switch, you have a Bluetooth reset button, and you have a dimmer knob. Super simple. Now, one of the things that I really like about the Aputure lights and the entire ecosystem is that they also have on all their newer lights, including the 100D and the 200D, Sidus Link app control. So on your Android or iPhone or iPad, you can control these lights. And it's not just to control the lights, it's actually more sophisticated than that. You can really kind of do more sophisticated things in terms of really nice and in-depth lighting designs. So it's more than just a simple control for the app. It's also nice from the standpoint that it uses Bluetooth mesh, so you can connect to all the lights at the same time. You don't have to join some sort of ad hoc network, which takes a lot of time and is a really kind of a pain. This is probably the best lighting control and design app I have used on any of the lights I've used so far. Through the app, you can also engage a number of different lighting effects, including fireworks, lightning, TV, faulty bulb, and paparazzi. The light comes with a 1-year warranty, and as we mentioned before, the 100D comes in at $199 US, and the 200D comes in at $299 US at the time of this review. Now, one of the other things they sent over to review is a new softbox. It's called the Light Dome SE, and it sits in size somewhere between the Light Dome Mini 2 and the Light Dome 2. So it's kind of the mid-size. And the thing that makes it less expensive, and I don't have all the details on the pricing for that yet. We'll put a link down below, but this one should be less expensive, certainly than the Light Dome 2. And the main way they saved cost there, it looks like, is that you don't have the little switches to disengage each of the rods. So it takes a little bit longer to set it up and to break it down. I think that's the trade-off you make if you're operating on a really tight budget, or if it's something you're going to have in a home studio and you're just going to leave it up all the time, then that's not a con from my point of view at all. So looking good there. How soft is this? You're seeing it right now. So we're using the Light Dome SE. It's about, I guess, a little over 1 meter, maybe approaching 1.5 meters from me right here. And you can see how the light kind of wraps around my face a little bit. So that's the kind of look you can expect with something like this. Now, there was one thing, I think it's a defect, and I will update in the comments below once we sort this out. The 200D that I got, the fan makes a little bit of a buzzing noise, and I think it's defective, but I'm not 100% sure. So we're going to go ahead and contact them, and I've already actually contacted them, just waiting to hear back, but I'll let you know down in the comments below once I hear back from them. Just thought you should know about that. The 100D and the 200D do not come with a physical hardware remote control, so you do have to use your app to control them remotely. Now, comparing these to the Godox lights that I've reviewed several Godox lights. I think these are probably most comparable to the SL line of lights from Godox. So I've originally reviewed the SL200, the original version, and then more recently the SL150 Mark II. And a couple of things strike me about the difference. Number one is the Sidus Link integration with the 100D and the 200D, to me, is what would sway me to buy those over the Godox, to be 100% honest and frank. Now, in terms of build quality, I think the newer Godox is probably a little bit better in terms of build quality, a lot more metal than the plastic that we're seeing on this one here. But again, overall, I think that because of the Sidus Link integration and because of the way they've put metal in the parts that are most important here, I would probably opt for the Aputure lights because I know, again, someone's going to ask that question. That would be my personal take on it. So hope you found that helpful. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those down below. And if you've not already subscribed, make sure you do that. And we'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you soon.